The past is only memories. The future is only hopes. Focus on the present because that's where your life really is. Today. I focus on solutions, not problems. If something doesn't go your way, it's okay to fail. It's fine. But just get up again. That's the most important thing in life. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I've had nothing but a wonderful time since I came here 2 days ago. Selma, Hazaku Baruch, you're a hard boss, but I love working with you. Yeah. Because you squeeze greatness out of me, and I love that. It's nice to be able to push yourself, so I'm happy. Selma and I, by the way, I will speak very slow, and if anybody has any questions or wants me to explain anything, raise your hand and I will explain it. My job is to make sure that when you leave here, you understand what I spoke about so you can walk away more educated. Now, in life, you need a strategy. In order to open a business, you need a strategy. In order to be able to be successful in life, you need a strategy. So we need a strategy. What's the purpose of today's class? What are we looking to achieve? What's the goal? So in the time, Our goals. Our goals, exactly. So in the times of the Mishnah, before they started, on the Gemara, before they started the class, they told a joke. So I'm going to tell a joke. 3 people were sentenced 20 years in prison. An Italian, a Jew, and a Polish guy. The Polish guy is not that smart. Okay. Now, they were told, you can go into the prison and take one thing with you. One thing. Okay. Giovanni, the Italiano, what would you like? He says, pizza. I wanted my wife. Give me my wife. Come on. Granted. Isaac, the Yehudi, what would you like? Give me a cell phone and a charger. Granted. Joe, the Polish guy, what would you like? I want a case of cigarettes. Okay. 20 years later, they open the doors. The first guy that comes out is the Italian. Muchas gracias, thank you so much, Mr. Warden. I have 12 bambinos. So I'm so happy. Isaac, the Jew, comes out. Isaac says, thank you, sir. With the cell phone, I called all my friends in New York on Wall Street. I bought and sold stocks. I'm a millionaire. A good Jew, he knows how to make money. What did the Polish guy take? Cigarette. Case of cigarettes. He says to the guy, can you please give me a match? No strategy. No strategy. You need a strategy. So we need a strategy. In 1964, a great rabbi from England, his name is Eliyahu Dessler. He was the head of Gateshead, which was a big yeshiva. He wrote a beautiful poem. The past is only memories. The future is only hopes. Focus on the present because that's where your life really is. Today. Right? We say, David HaMelech says, Hayom im bikolo tishma'u. Will you listen to God's voice today? What matters now in my life, in your life, is what's happening now. If I focus on the past, I'll think about my mistakes. One of my rabbis told me that one of the greatest gifts God gave us is a concept called shikha. What's shikha? Forgetting. Because forgetting allows me to erase bad things, mistakes that I made, things that bother me, hurtful events, losses. We have to focus on the present with an eye towards the future. And this poem sums up the most important lesson we need to teach ourselves. What you focus on will expand your life. What you think about, what your goals are. Your life challenge is to appreciate all that you can appreciate about today. You have a family. You know, my Rabbi would tell us, you went to the bathroom today? That's Olam Haba. That's Gan Eden. I remember taking my father, Baruch Hashem, he lived 96. But at the end, he needed dialysis. For us, we go to the bathroom, that's 30 seconds. For a person who has dialysis, that's 6 hours. You understand? So we have to appreciate everything. Our eyes, our ears, our health. How many people did not make it from the pandemic? Baruch Hashem, we're alive. right? Your life challenge is to experience more joy in your present life, in your studies, in your hobbies, with your friends. Your life challenge is to become kinder, is to become more compassionate, is to experience more joy from the good that you do. You're involved right now in a tremendous chesed. You should walk home today and say, wow, I participated, I saw a great thing, this video is amazing. And if you're participating in this, that means whatever you did, the money, the time, is helping someone else's life feel good. You know, we just read Megillat Ruth. At the end of Megillat Ruth, many people don't realize, Boaz says to Ruth, thank you so much for the kindness you did for me. That doesn't make sense. He gave her food. Why is he thanking her? She should say thank you to him. And the answer is, receiving is sometimes more than giving. He was happy that he could give. Thank you for the privilege to give. So Boaz says to Ruth, thank you for the kindness. You did a kindness for me by allowing me to do kindness with you. Look how he flipped it on her. You understand? That's important. Giving makes us feel special. So you will be wiser when you look at your life and appreciate the good that we have and appreciate the good that you've done. Every day is important. Every day is valuable. Every day you can grow and develop yourself. You agree, Salma? You agree, right? Every day you can grow. Now, Hashem is in charge. A guy lives in New York. One of the hardest things about New York, you can't find parking anywhere. It's impossible. So he says, Hashem, I have an important meeting, a business meeting. I'll donate $50 to tzedakah if you give me a parking spot. Nothing. Now he's getting desperate. So Hashem, I'm going to donate $500 from the deal if you find me a parking spot. Nothing. I'll donate $5,000 to tzedakah if you find me a parking spot. No parking spot. Hashem, I'll give $50,000 from the profits. Parking spot opens up and he parks his car. Hashem, it's okay, I don't need your help. He tells him. You know what I'm saying? So people forget that Hashem is behind everything and He's responsible for all our successes. Now, you don't fail when you fall. You don't fail when you fall unless you don't get up. It's okay to fail, but get up again. You know what's the problem? If you stay on the floor. So if you make a mistake in life or something doesn't go your way, it's okay to fail. It's fine, but just get up again. That's the most important thing in life. When I was in New York, I studied in a yeshiva for 14 years. I was a doctor. In the morning, I had a havruta for 2 hours. I was a surgeon. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't give my biography. Let me step back and give him a biography. My great-grandfather was born in Halab in Syria, and he went to Yerushalayim, and from Yerushalayim they moved to Buenos Aires, and one of his sons moved to Cairo. That was my grandfather. He got married to a woman Tawil. They moved back to Buenos Aires. She was not happy. She was homesick, and they moved back to Cairo, where my father was born. I was born in Cairo, Egypt. I was born in Cairo. My father and my uncles were students of Rav Ovadia Yosef. He was the first chief rabbi of Egypt in 1944. That was his first job after he finished Porat Yosef, which you know Porat Yosef is next to the Kotel, and he was a student of Chaim Ra'atiyah, was also from Halab. He was Rosh Yeshiva. After the 6-Day War, we left Egypt and we went to New York. I was raised in the Syrian community, fantastic community, Baruch Hashem. I went to the Talmud Torah of the Syrian community. After that, I went to Yeshiva University High School for boys. And then I went to college. I went to NYU and Harvard for pre-medical studies. I went to NYU Medical School where I became an orthopedic surgeon. Then I probably did 30,000 surgeries in my life. I specialized in sports medicine and foot surgery. I was assigned in California in 1984 to the United States Olympic team I was one of the physicians for the Olympic team in 1984. I came back after I finished my training in California, and I opened an office in New York. And my Rabbi was in the middle of the Syrian community. A man moved into the area. His name was Avigdor Miller. He became one of the biggest rabbis in the last 100 years. And at the age of 12, he became my rabbi. And he was a genius in human relations. And he encouraged me. He says, you're going to be a doctor in the afternoon, and I want you to teach in the morning. I want you to teach young men in the morning. In the morning, I used to teach in Ashkenazi yeshivot mostly, boys who came home from Israel. I'm a very big believer that they should try Israel after high school for a year and a half, 2 years. They become independent. They become mature. They get a love for the land. They learn how to speak Hebrew. They understand that this land is our life, that we love this land. And as you see from the video, we're connected to Eretz Yisrael. This is our very being. So these boys were coming home from Israel, and I would teach them Chumash, Mishnah, Gemara. Many of them had questions about life, and many of them asked me questions about getting married, and I helped them with shidduchim. A lot of them, hundreds of them, thousands of them. I moved to Miami in 2001, where I thought I was going for my practice, but I ended up, Hashem had a different plan for me. I was a doctor in the morning, and I taught University of Miami for Yeshivat Esha Torah. Again, if you went to the Kotel HaMaravi, you see the Esha Torah building right there, the Don World Center. So they wanted professionals to come into the university and show them that you could be Shomer Shabbat, and you could believe in God and be a professional. The two are not opposed. You don't have to believe that we came from monkeys in order, you understand, to be a professional. There is a God, but you could be Shomer Shabbat and you could be successful as a lawyer, as a doctor, as an accountant. And I continued my work. Many of my students came to my house for Shabbat. They never experienced Shabbat in their life. Many people came from the college. It's the first time. My daughters were, small at the time. Poppy, they're turning the light on Shabbat. I said, leave them alone. Let them do whatever they want. They're learning. It's fine, So I was able to help many, many people. After 7 years, I was thinking about my daughters getting married. And I didn't like what I saw in Miami. I wanted the boys of New York. That's what I was interested in. So I called the Tasha Rebbe in Montreal. And he said to me, time for you to go home. I bought a house in Miami. I spent $50,000 on the architect. The guy didn't put a nail in the wall. I said, what's going on? Well, the city has so many requirements because of the hurricane. Right. This law and that law. And my house wasn't selling in New York, which doesn't make sense. You could sell anything in New York. So he said, the Rebbe said, it's time for you to go back. So I went back, and I was getting ready to start as a doctor again. And I used to give a class in one of the universities, near Touro College. It was called Wednesday Night Dating with Dr. Jack. Boys and girls came, free dinner, and I taught them how to date. This became my expertise. One day, somebody asked me, can I put your lecture on video? I said, fine. The next day, they put it on a website called TorahAnytime.com. Don't ask. I started getting emails from all over the world. Denmark, Sweden, Japan, Honduras, California, Chicago. I have questions on this, questions on that. I started seeing that this was where God was sending me. That is why today I spend 13 to 14 hours a day on Zoom or WhatsApp video or talking to people about getting them married, mentoring them, coaching them, or keeping them married happily, or giving lectures. And this is what brings me to this work today. And thank God, my shiurim probably are responsible for 200 marriages a year. I get so many emails thanking me. Yeah. So let's go back to what I said. You don't fail if you fall. You only fail if you don't get up. And it's important in life not to let a setback keep you on the floor. You got to get up. You have to make sure. I have to share an amazing story with you. A couple. Their name was Tova and David Alter. Married for 15 years, no kids. You know the halakha. After 10 years, no kids, gerushin, divorce. You have to have children. That's why you're put in this world. The first mitzvah of the Torah, perur bu umirut haaretz. You have to have children. So This is one of the most incredible stories that I've had the pleasure to tell. So they're sitting there, and with tears coming down his eyes, he gives his wife the get. He moves into a small apartment. 2 days later, his wife calls him up. His ex-wife, Tova. David, I'm pregnant. Wow! I don't believe it. And he went from Gehinnom to Gan Eden. And then he turns white as a ghost. I'm a Cohen. I can never take her back. What am I going to do now? I can't take her back. Now what are we going to do? So what do you do 5-6 years ago when you have a big problem? You go to one address, Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He comes to Reb Chaim and he's crying. He's crying. Rebbe, please, everyone in the world comes to you for answers to every problem. I beg you, help me. What should I do? And he says to him, it's a gezerah from Shamayim. There's nothing I can tell you to do. I have one suggestion to you. Go to my father-in-law, Rabbi Yashiv. He passed away like 2012. He was Reb Chaim's father-in-law. So he gets on the Eged bus. He goes from Bnei Brak to Yerushalayim. He knocks on the door. Rabbi Yashiv lived until he was 106. Anyway, he probably was 98, 99 at the time. He tells him what happened. He says, it's like my son-in-law told you, Reb Chaim. It's a gezerah from Shamayim, but Rebbe, there's got to be something I can do. Listen what happens, Selma. He tells him, go to the kotel now and pray a tefillah like you never prayed in your life. Just go. And he goes to the kotel and he's crying his eyes out. He's reading the Tehillim. The tears are going into the pages. And people are looking at this guy. What's going on with him? So somebody taps him on the shoulder. Sir, is everything okay? And he tells them the story. And from nowhere, the man says to him, do you have a father? Yes. My father lives in New York, and he's in a nursing home. He can't talk. He's like an Elam. He sits there, and just in a wheelchair. Make a airplane ticket. Go visit your father. Now. Go visit your father. And he's saying to himself, who is this guy? What's he telling me? Go visit your father? For what? But he said, you know what? Reb Chaim told me to go to the Chacham Yashiv. Rabbi Yashiv told me to go to the kotel. Don't ask questions. He calls his travel agent. I need a round trip ticket to New York, to JFK. He makes the trip. He goes to the nursing home where his father is. And the doctor says, how can I help you? I'm his son. I need to talk to him. Talk to him? Your father has been sitting there for 20 years like a vegetable. He doesn't talk to anybody. So he sits down like this next to his father and he starts telling him the whole story. And the man is like staring in space, the father. For the first time in 20 years, he starts to talk to him. He says, Yisrael, you know I was a Holocaust survivor. And your mother was a Holocaust survivor. We couldn't have children. We adopted you! You're not a Cohen! Wow! Wow! Huh? So he saw that it was like Eliyahu Navi came to tap him on the shoulder in the kotel, right? And now he goes back and he marries his wife again. And Baruch Hashem. So everything is possible. Exactly.
So you can't convert to Cohen if you're
Cohen,
No, you're dead.
I mean, but he was adopted to this family.
He was never a Kohen. No, you have to be born as a Kohen. Born as a Kohen. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm a Kohen. If you do a blood test on me, you will see DNA. There's special DNA of a Kohen. Yeah. Don't do it now.
Tomorrow, maybe.
Okay. So when I was in New York, I studied in a yeshiva of one of the rabbis that built the Jewish community of the United States after World War II. His name was Rabbi Hutner. And he was responsible for all the rabbis throughout the United States. He opened his office, his yeshiva, right after World War II in 1946. And then he started sending his students throughout the United States to become rabbis for all these communities. He gets a letter from Chicago in 1968 from one of his students. And the student says, Rebbe, I feel so depressed. I'm a failure in life. I'm not making any progress. When I was in yeshiva, I was such a success. I was so enthusiastic about my life. Today, I see only black. And listen to what he tells him. This is the struggle of the Yetzer Hara that tries to bring us down. He says, do you think Hacham Ovadia Yosef became a genius overnight? Do you think that the Hafetz Chaim, who taught us not to speak Lashon Hara, just decided one day he's not speaking Lashon Hara? Do you know how many times these tzaddikim fell and made violations and sins until they became who they became? And he tells him, I'm going to tell you in Hebrew, Da'alecha Habibi, you should know my beloved student, Habibi, my beloved one, Shoresh Nishmatcha, the reason why we're alive, Lo HaShalva Shal Yetzer Tov, it's not the shalva when things are good, and we should always have good, about Davka B'Milchama Shel Yetzer Hara. But the war with the Yetzer Hara, okay, you had a fight with your friend yesterday, now you feel down, and Yetzer Hara says, go get rid of it. Okay, I'm ready again. What do you want me? See, I did that by purpose, so you should have some lunch. It was all planned. Thank you, Hashem. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the part that you say
man counts the seeds of every fruit. Hashem counts the fruit of every one seed. My pleasure. Okay. Let's continue. Today is the greatest day of your life. Today is the only day that exists. All the past days are just part of your memory. So the good thoughts that you have in your head are so important to fill your head with good thoughts. Now, this is not for you because I know that you all appreciate everything. But you have children and grandchildren who are medala'in, spoiled. So I want to teach you what to tell them. When people say, it's not fair, right? People say, it's not fair, it's not fair. Let's hear what a fair world would look like. If the world was fair, you would have 2 pieces of bread to eat every day. If everything was given out perfectly, evenly, you wouldn't have this table. If the world was fair, you would have 1 dress and 1 pair of pants. If the world was fair, there would be 1 room for 25 people per family. If the world was fair, there would be 1 telephone for every 200 families. If the world was fair, there would be 1 car for every 500 families. So, do you want the world to be fair? Or do you want the beracha that we have as Jews? Next time they complain it's not fair, tell them what I just told you. You really want the world to be fair? You don't want the world to be fair. You want to always say thank you, Hashem. So, 8 principles of happiness. Ready? Write this down. I think gratefully. I'm always grateful, the way I think, for all the good that I have. That's number 1. Number 2, I speak joyfully with happiness. Good morning. What do you want? Good morning. Hi, how are you? Smile. You know how many single people I have to teach them how to smile? It's not part of their life. I said, close the door, look at the mirror, and smile 50 times a day for me. Make it part of your life. Do you realize that when you send someone on a date, 80% of the communication is non-verbal? Non-verbal, not with your mouth. I tell them, if you're not going to smile like this, you're going to have a failure of a date. The date will not be successful. 80% of the communication is not from your mouth. It's how you sit and the energy you give off. So that's number 3. Number 2, I speak joyfully. I assume everything will work out fine. There's 2 ways to look at it. I'll make money or I'll lose money. I'll get an A or I'll get an F. I think positive. 4.
3. 4. No, this is 4.
I develop meaningful goals for my life. I'll lose 10 pounds. I will save some money. I'm going to go to Israel next year, and that's my goal, to be at the bar mitzvah of my grandson. You have to have good goals. I'm going to learn how to sew. I will develop a relationship with my daughter that I don't speak to. I'm going to set goals, meaningful goals. 5, this is very important. I see myself the way I want to be. So, I see myself as a winner. I can imagine it. Do you know, when I was in surgery, the way they trained us is before I walked into an operating room, I did the whole surgery in my head. When I walked in, it was doom, doom, doom. I knew exactly what I was doing because I imagined the whole thing in my mind already, what I was going to do. This speech, you think I just prepared it? I spent 10 hours this past Shabbat rehearsing this. So that when it comes in, I come here, it goes in executed like a Golani brigade. Understand? Whatever you do, you practice it. This way you know what the results are going to be. Next. I focus on solutions, not problems. You know, I was at a medical conference in Denver 6 months ago. He said something fascinating. I don't worry about problems. If there's a problem, there's got to be an answer. A guy said that. Every problem has a solution. Every problem has a solution. Okay, next. So I focused on solutions. That was number 6. Number 7, I let challenges develop my character. Problems happen. You know how many people become great from a problem? You know, like they say in English, take lemons and make lemonade. Got it? Number 8, when I'm not in a good mood, I think of a happy memory. So I transport myself. I think of the bar mitzvah that we went to. I think of my anniversary. I think of the great vacation to Miami or whatever, wherever I went, LA, whatever it may be. But I have a memory bank of good memories, and I can go back. So I want to review it. Number 1, I think gratefully. 2, I speak happily. 3, I assume they'll be good. 4, I develop meaningful goals. 5, I see myself the way I want to be. 6, I focus on solutions, not problems. 7, I let problems and challenges develop my character, not bring me down, but make me better. 8, I consistently access positive states. I want to talk about number 7. Do you know how many people have started amazing tzedakah or hesed organizations from problems? There's an organization in New York that helps cancer people because the person who started lost their son to cancer. And it's one of the biggest. Usually it's a problem that leads to something great. If you see an organization, it's probably because the person who started that organization had that problem and needed to find a solution. And then they said, you know what? I'm going to make the world a better place and I'll help other people. Again, Teach yourself to see the rose and not the thorn. Very important. Focus on the positive. Next, very important. I teach this to single people. Leave everyone feeling better about themselves. Have a nice day. It's so nice to see you. When you greet your friends, lift them the way you speak. When you send a text, instead of saying, pick me up, say, good morning, Esther. I look forward when you'll pick me up today. It's just 3 more words. Good morning. Have a wonderful day. This is how I write my text. She'll tell you. That's the way I write. I want to leave people feeling better about themselves because they say, you know that person? They're special. They have such goodness. I enjoy talking to them. People should like your company. They should like to be with you. Leave people feeling better about themselves. It's just a few extra words sometimes, but it has such an effect. That person may be having a tough day. That person maybe got screamed at by the boss. And you told them, have a great day. Change their day. Now he's not going to go home and scream at his wife or the husband, etc. So leave people feeling better about themselves. I got to tell you an amazing story. You got to hear this. This is not normal. There's a rabbi. He has a high school in Israel, a seminary also. A very successful man comes to him and says, I want to get married. He says, sure. How can I help you? I want the smartest girl in your school. I want numero uno. Okay? I'm going to start, I'll get you piggy short dates with the best girls. He goes out with one. He says, the principal calls him up. How was it? She's not smart enough for me. A week later, another girl. Nah, not smart enough for me. He's sending the best girls, the smartest ones. 3, 4, 5. No, he's rejecting everyone. No, not good enough. A month goes by, and the guy's going out with a girl who was number 46 out of 100 from that school. So the principal's like, his name is Rabbi Baharan. He's scratching himself. She's not smart. What? And he's going out with her. He calls him up and he says, how's it going? I love this girl. She's amazing. So the rabbi says, I have to investigate. Makorepo. So he calls the girl. He says to her, tell me, what's going on in the dates? She says, you know, he's very smart. And he talks a lot. I don't really understand everything he says, but I say, wow, that's so intelligent. That's so amazing. That's wow. And the guy's happy. And he married her. And then 2 months later, the rabbi calls her up. He says, how's your shalom bayit? Great. How's it going? What does he talk about? I don't know what he talks about. I just keep telling him, you're amazing, you're wow, you're fantastic. And the rabbi said, this woman had more intelligence than the smart girls. Why? Because she picked up on a very important nikudah that I teach girls all over the world. Men have fragile egos. You understand? Their ego is like an egg, crushed one side. If you know how to build a man with the words, you got him made. And she was very smart. The rabbi said, we learned, Yes. He said this woman was smarter than any other woman who was much smarter than her. Her emotional intelligence was something very, very, very interesting. Here's a good one. We judge other people by their actions, but we want others to judge us by what we were thinking of doing. For example, you see what happened? She went to a car on Shabbat. She's Mehalish Shabbat. She's a sinner. But when you did it, nobody knew that you were taking your daughter to the hospital because she was having a baby. You understand? We judge people. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, but we don't give other people the benefit of the doubt. Again, we judge people by their actions, but we want the world to judge us by our intentions. I didn't mean to speak Lashon Hara. It wasn't bad. You know, we have excuses for ourselves. How come you don't have an excuse for your friend? How come you give yourself an easy break and not them? What's the point? Dan lekav zichut. She didn't invite you to the wedding? Maybe she forgot. She didn't invite you to the Brit Milah? Maybe she was busy. No, I hate her. I'm never going to Smachot again. She's off my list. Did you ask? Did you find out? Did you do any research? That's very important. About 40 years ago, let's talk about that, about giving people the benefit of the doubt. About 40 years ago, there was a guy got engaged. A nice boy, yeshiva boy, nice girl. And it was snowing in New York, very, very hard. The Hatan is in the car with his best friend. And they're both 22 years old. He's engaged. Gonna get married in a few months. He loses control of the car goes spinning and goes right into the lake. He breaks his elbow, his friend dead. So the girl's father goes to the funeral. The Hatan is in the hospital, but he's going to be released. He's going to be okay. Now he has to go and pay a visit, a shiva call, to the boy's father that passed away. So he comes in, he says, I feel so bad. He looks at him, that's your daughter? You're going to let her marry a rotzeah? You're going to let her marry a murderer? So he says, hello, relax. It's not his fault. Okay, maybe he's not a rotzeah b'mezid, but he's a rotzeah b'shogeg. He's still a rotzeah. He killed by accident, but he's a killer. You're going to let her marry that guy? Well, after the Shiva, I'm calling the government and I'm going to press charges for murder.
Who's talking?
The father of the boy who passed away. And he's talking to the father of the girl. So the father of the girl comes home and he's like, in Arabic we say bitrash. He's shocked. He tells his wife what happened. And now this father of the boy starts to spread the Lashon Hara throughout the town that Hatan is a rotzeah. He's a murderer. They don't know where to hide. And they said to themselves, the pressure's too much. We think we're going to break the shidduch. Just going to break the shidduch. We don't need this pressure. It's too much pressure. So 2 weeks before the wedding, they call the Hatan's side and say, I'm sorry, hashidduch nishbar. We're breaking the shidduch. The Hatan, who loved the girl, was devastated. He was broken. And she wanted to get married, but she listened to her parents. She's a good girl. 2 months later, she gets engaged to another guy. They weren't careful because they were in a rush to marry her, because Ka'an, she's damaged goods, broken engagement, so they didn't do so much research, and she got married to another guy. She stops talking to her parents. He wouldn't let her call her parents. He was a bad guy. 3 months later, she comes home with her suitcases. The guy was a behemah. He was an animal. He treated her bad. He abused her. He was very bad to her. And she's talking, the mother of the Kala is talking to her husband, what did we do in our life? First, we're involved, we break the engagement because they call our son-in-law Rotzeah. Now, she gets divorced. One was a Rotzeah b'shogeg, now this is a Rotzeah b'mezid. He murdered our daughter. And if you think it was bad, listen to what happens. Gets worse. The father of the girl is going to shul, and it's winter in New York, and the sun comes down very early, and he's going to shul, and he can't see, and he's blinded by the sun, and he hits a man, and he kills the gabbai of the shul.
This is a true story.
True story. Yeah, he kills the gabbai of the shul. Now he has to go and pay a shiva call to the sons of the gabbai. He walks in, and he's absolutely shocked. They tell him, it's okay, it's not your fault. It's a gezerah from Shamayim. It was my father's time. And he's unbelievably shocked by their emunah. And who's sitting next to him? The father of the boy that was killed. And he's listening to the way that they were talking to the man. How they accept everything. How they're accepting everything. And he goes home. A week later, there's a knock on the door. It's the father of the boy that was killed. And he says, I must talk to you. When I was at the Shiva house of the Rabbi, I saw how the sons accepted you with such love and warmth and didn't blame you. I was thinking about how bad I was to you, how I ruined your daughter's life. And I made her break up the shidduch. And I asked myself, what could I do to fix and repair the damage that I did? And I said, I know what I have to do. I'm going to go back to the ex-Hatan. I went back to the ex-Hatan and I said to him, I know I was responsible for breaking up the shidduch. Can you forgive me? He says, yes, on one condition. I want the wife of my love back. So the man says to the family, I'm here to be the Shadchan. Please let your daughter get married to him. A month later, they had a big, beautiful wedding. And they got married. The first Hatan to the first Kala. Dal Nikav Zichut. We have to always give people the benefit of the doubt. Give me a second. So we have to choose wisely. Choose wisely. That's so important. I'm going to have one more story and then I'll close with one good thought. Oh, by the way, this is what I say every day. The prayer of gratitude. And I could send it to WhatsApp to you. I'm sure it's even in Spanish. I've seen it in Spanish. Please get a copy and say this every day. This is, part of my life, maybe now 20 years. I can't tell you how important it is. That's important. Okay. Okay. So we spoke about. How am I doing on time? It's good?
They're waiting for you.
Where?
Outside.
For what? Where am I going?
I don't know.
Oh, I have lunch with Mizab, right. I'm Mizab. Okay, so it's okay. I'll eat later. Anyway, I'm not so hungry anyway. But I have to share some good stuff with you. So,
Choose wisely.
yeah, choose wisely. Choose wisely. All your decisions are very important, and they will affect other people's lives. A story happened in Israel. A man starts coughing blood. He calls his doctor. Normally the doctor's not going to pick up the phone at 2 in the morning. The doctor will happen to be up. He says, you know what, it's probably not a problem, but go to the emergency room anyway. And it was a small hospital in Israel. So he goes to the emergency room. It's pretty crowded. He's sitting with his wife. He's a religious man. Sitting with his wife. And he sees a man, bald head, walking back and forth, very nervous. So his wife says, Yoni, telech shama, tishal oto, ma koreh imo? Maybe he has a problem. So he walks over to the guy's bald. He says, is everything okay? And he looks at him and he says, no, everything is not okay. My son was mowing the lawn and there was a problem with the machine and he stuck his fingers and he cut 2 fingers off. Now, and then we brought the fingers with ice. And the surgeon said he doesn't want to take a chance to try to put them on because it could endanger the boy's life. So you have a half hour to make a decision. Do you want me to try or not? Because it could be sakana to the boy's life. So I don't know what to do. So this guy, smart, he goes, no problem. There's a guy in Israel called Rabbi Foyer. He's a genius in medicine. He has an organization called Ezra Lamarpeh. He helps people with doctors all over the world. He's a genius. They wrote about him many times, Rabbi Foyer. But he's hard to get to. So he says, do you know Rabbi Foyer? He tells the guys, Hiloni, he's not religious. Yeah, but everyone knows it takes 6 months to get him on the phone. Don't worry. Pulls out his cell phone. He got him. He woke him up 2:30 in the morning. And he tells him the problem. He says, I'll call you right back. This Rabbi Chaim Foyer calls him back. He says, go to the nurse right now. Tell her you're leaving the hospital. You want the 2 fingers with ice. You're going to Hadassah right now. There's a surgeon waiting to do the surgery. I just set the whole thing up. So he hugged him and he kissed him. They didn't exchange phone numbers, and he felt so bad because he wanted a few weeks later to find out what happened. Okay. A couple of months later, there's a knock on the door of the religious guy and his wife. It's the father and his son. Gidon, Terelo, show him your fingers. Beautiful. Completely healed. 100% successful surgery. So he tells him, do you know what my insurance company paid for this surgery? 200,000 shekels. And I said, that's not fair. You saved my son's life. He pulls out an envelope. Here's 200,000 shekels for you. He says, I cannot take this money. And they're fighting back and forth. It was a mitzvah. I don't want the money. And back and forth. He says, okay, no money. I'm not taking the money. So the boy says, you know what? I feel bad. Instead of my father paying you, here's what I plan on doing. I'm going to use my fingers and put tefillin on. I never once put tefillin on except for my bar mitzvah, ever. And I will use my fingers to put tefillin on. Okay. They took their names and addresses. A year later, the religious guy's daughter is getting married, so he invites the family with the boy to come, share b'simcha, to the chuppah, to the hatuna. And he comes over to the father, his friend, who is the religious guy. He made the wedding, and he says to him, yeah, I know you didn't take money before for the surgery, but you have to take a wedding gift. Please. And he gives him an envelope, but it's pretty heavy. He puts inside his pocket. Okay, the wedding's over. Now it's time to pay everybody. So he goes to the caterer. Kama ze ole? Sheloshim elef shekel. Sorry, taken care of. Somebody paid for it. Musician, how much do I owe for the music? 10,000 shekels. Taken care of. Done. He opens the envelope. It was receipts for everything. He paid for everything. The guy paid for everything. So listen to what happens. They went away, the boy and his family went away for Pesach to the Galil, and he wrote him a letter, the religious man. I feel so bad. I forgot to take my tefillin away with me when we went on vacation to Pesach. So I told you, I promised you I'll never miss a day without tefillin. And the rabbi calls him up. He says, it's okay, because we don't put a tefillin on Yom Tov Chol Moed. You never missed. Ever. Okay, so let's just finish with one story. 200 years ago, or 300 years ago, there was always decrees against the Jews in Russia. During the time of the Tsars, there was a decree to expel the Jews and throw them out. Two rabbis went to speak to the Tsar to try to tell him, please, remove the Gezerah. It was the Lubavitcher Rebbe of that time, called the Tzemach Tzedek, and an Ashkenaz Rosh Yeshiva. They walked in to speak to the Tsar. First of all, the Tsar was a very angry man, and he could just kill you for no reason. This is in 1780. So he says to him, what can I do for you? We came here to ask you, please, to remove the decree. And he says, I don't understand why I should remove the decree of the Jews. They are such an unnecessary nation. The world doesn't need them. And the rabbi starts to laugh. Ha 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 ha. The Tsar's now turning red. Why are you laughing? I could kill you. He says, you know, Your Majesty knows that there was a prophet in the Bible by the name of Bilam. You know who Bilam is? He was the Gentile prophet that was sent to curse the Jews in the desert. And he said, there'll come a time when they'll say, Ki yavo hazman yagidu al Yaakov Yisrael, there'll come a time, he says, in the future, when they will say about the Jewish people, Ma pa'al el, what did God do? Meaning, there'll come a time in the future when people will say, why did God make this nation? And I asked myself, I always worried, what's going to happen when you just said that comment? Why did God make the Jews? Now I'm not worried. You know why? Because look at the next pasuk. Because they will rise like a lion. So I'm not afraid of you or anyone else. Because no one will ever destroy us. And that's the message. People may ask, who needs the Jews? The world cannot live without the Jews. That's a fact of life. And the Zohar was so impressed, he says, decree abolished. That's the last message I want to leave with you. That we're proud who we are. We're Am Sigula. We're the nation that Hashem loves more than any other nation. We donate more than anyone. We give the world knowledge and wisdom and medicine and science. You should all have fantastic lives. Remember what I told you today. Think of the present. Be grateful. Always remember the good. And Hashem should shower all you with beracha and shefa all your lives. Thank you.